Shalom Aleichem and Good Erev Shabbos. It's Friday afternoon still. Erev Shabbos Kedesh Bashas Vayishlach. Yud Beis Yomam Chedesh Kislev. Eliyim Yud Gimel Kislev, which, if you remember, is a day of extraordinary Didanotzach. This is the 39th anniversary since that miracle where the judge decided at the last minute, HaMelech Ein Dan Ve'Ein Dan in Eisei. Even though the Lashon HaMelech Ein Dan Ve'Ein Dan in Eisei is Lav Dafke said in the Eifin of Maile, because it said about Malchi Yisrael, but there's also when you're going to get to Malchi Yehuda, mitzad covered, not mitzad the fact that they were afraid that they were Anoshim Alimim. But the Rebbe was supposed to do a deposition in the library, and it was cancelled at the last minute. I heard from Rabbi Ba'al Shem Tov, that the Rebbe was told in the morning that the deposition was cancelled, and the Rebbe said he already scheduled it, so he went to the library anyway. And he sat with Rabbi Krinsky, and Rabbi Shem Tov and the lawyers, and verbringt. The way he described me, the Rebbe sat back in the chair full. The Rebbe always sat at the edge of his seat. The Rebbe he sat in the chair. And he verbringt, if I remember what he told me, it was about Nesias, about the Inyan of my Rebbe. And his role as a Ish Kloli, that the idea of Klal, his responsibility to the community. I don't want to speak more because I don't remember more, but this he did tell me, and it's so that's tomorrow Shabbos Kodesh. It's a very special Didanotzach, and it led to the ultimate Didanotzach, and the ultimate Didanotzach says, Yankov Avinu Leimeis Mazare B'Chaim Afu B'Chaim, and for us this is every single minute of every single day. There is the test of Zare B'Chaim for the Hu B'Chaim and the Yankov Avinu Leimeis. It's an Indian from Avodah B'Poel Mamish, but each chassid, each person, the Iskaria chassid, the Yankov Avinu Leimeis is dependent on the Zari B'Chaim, which is us, you and me. Now this is, first of all, the shir is schus for Shleima, for Meir Chaim ben Chayetzira, Liebe Breine bas Alter Miriam, Shleima Yossi ben Risha, Baruch Hadassah bas Gutke, Chaim Mushka bas Natal, and Lilu Nishmas HaKodesh, Tzvi ben Alexander HaKoyen Hashem, Yimkim Domi, and Harav Moshe Yehuda ben Tzvi Yosef. Now this is our second shir in Bas Legani Tov Shin Chav Hei. The last shir I did this morning, about an hour and 5 or 10 minutes. And all I did was introduction. We got till Perek Beis. So I'm going to jump into this Mamer a little bit more quickly. This shir. In other words, I'm not going to repeat the whole introduction I gave in the last shir. I'm going to expect that you listen to that shir first. That the Rebbe Rayatz is explaining what it means by the Eibishter treasure, because one of the key ideas about Legani is the idea of the war, and that the king is mevazbeis ha'etzes she'asru avesav avesav. He dispenses of treasure that he has from himself and from his ancestors, and he gives it to the pekidei achayil, he gives it to the generals. But ultimately, for the sake of the anshe chayil, ish chayil pasha, the simple soldier, and the purpose of it is to win the milchama, which is milchemes nitzachan, that you have to win, you must win, you can't lose chas v'shalom. So the Rebbe is explaining what is the ruchnius of bizbaz ha'etzes. So the previous Rebbe brings lahaven zesh lahagdam tchila mashakasa b'tikun zeyad ein seif or ein seif lamayla adein kates lamata adein tachlis, or sometimes the lashon is lamayla mayla adein kates or lamata mata adein tachlis. That ein seif, which means godliness basically, which is the face of God, the light of God, the expression of God. I like to call it God interactive. Has two characteristics. And the previous Rebbe first explains the second one. As low as you go in the darkest klipa, you'll even find eaks. And this is Perek Yud Beis Yud Gimel Yud of the Basi Legani. And Perek Tezvav, and if I understand it correctly, also Perek Tezayin, as I explained in my previous class, is the idea of Ein Seif Lamayla Adein Kates. That godness is as high as you go, he's higher. And as the Hemshech is going to go, the idea of Oitzer is going to be in Sefer Lamayla Adein Kates. This idea that we're learning this year and next year, Perek Tezvav and Tezayin, Tovshin Chafei and Tovshin Chavav, and I guess Tovshin Memhe and Tovshin Memvav, are going to address the idea of godliness being beyond anybody's access, and that idea of godliness, which is beyond anybody's access, is the treasure that the king, the Eibishter Koyachal, gives the Pekidei Achal, for the Anshe Achal, for the Tzivos Hashem, to win the Milchemes Nitzachan, and bring the Gula Mitzvah Vashlei Ma'idem Mashiach Tzidkeinu. That's what this Mamer is about. So he's talking about Ein Seif, and the idea that Ein Seif is unavailable. Now, in the last class, I explained to you at length that in this Perek, and therefore in this Mamer, Ein Seif L'mayla Mayla Den Kates is explained based on the principle of Tzimtzum. In other words, L'mayla Mayla Den Kates means that in order for the world to be, the Eibush removed Oyer. That's the Ein Seif L'mayla Den Kates, that's removed from the world. The deeper idea of Ein Seif L'mayla Den Kates, that there's something called the Lakus of Helam, godliness, which is higher than Gilui, is not in this Mamer, it's not in this Perek. It's in the next Perek. In other words, if I'm not incorrect, this Perek is a segue, it's a first step to a second step. The second step is next year. Perek Tez Zayin and Tavshin Chavov. But this year we're learning about the idea of Ein Seif L'mayla Den Kates, the idea of Tzimtzum. In order for the worlds to be, Hashem takes away His light. And taking away His light means He hides the light from the world. And that's the meaning of Ein Seif L'mayla Mayla Den Kates, that in relationship with the world, godliness is hidden. What the Rebbe is going to explain in this Mamer is, first of all, that Hein Gvoreisov, that only the Eibishter could make such Gvura. In other words, just like it's a Keach Ein Seif, it's an infinite power to reveal godliness. It takes an infinite power to hide godliness. And second of all, the Gam Zei Iker over Hu Iker, this is primary, that when the Eibishter removes the Ein Seif from the world, it doesn't mean that the Ein Seif is not here. The Ein Seif is here. But it's here in the kind of way that it's hidden from us. Or to say it in other words, that the Tzimtzum is Shalei Kipshute. And that, I think, is the extent to which this Perek speaks to the idea of Oitzer, the hiddenness of godliness as it relates to Tzimtzum, is here. It's here because the idea of the hiddenness doesn't mean that the godliness has been taken away. It's that the godliness is here, but in a state of Helam. That's how I understand this Perek. So again, the key idea in this Perek, and therefore in this Mamer, is Tzimtzum. And Tzimtzum has to do with Ein Seif L'mayla Mayla Den Kates, because Tzimtzum happens by the Oyer being removed and being raised up above the Elamis. But as we'll learn in the Perek, the Elikus being raised above the Elamis doesn't mean that it's not here, it's here in the way of Helam. And in the next Perek, we'll go to the second step, which is there's a level of godliness which is above Gilui L'chatchila. It's beyond the whole idea of revelation. And that level of godliness which is above revelation is Atzmos of Ein Seif, and that's the union of Eitzer. So if I'm not wrong, and I'm repeating myself so many times that I'm boring myself, this Perek is a segue to the next Perek. So this Perek is about Tzimtzum. So the Rebbe begins Perek Beis Maschal Vaybe Perek Chamisha Asa. The Rebbe begins to explain in Perek 15. This is a quote from the Friedrich Rebbe's Mamer, Shem Shein Seif L'mata Mata. Just as we explained in the last three Perek. The idea that godliness is found everywhere. It radiates and it reveals itself beyond the measure and beyond the number everywhere. Where you in the darkest place you find the lakos. It's also true that godliness is removed from the world, is higher than the world in a way which is beyond an end. And I use a lot of very fancy words. The light is hidden. But he adds, it's a hiddenness beyond the hiddenness. And the hiddenness behind the hiddenness has to do with the fact that the light goes higher and even higher in its direction away from the world. And then he adds two more expressions. That the light shouldn't be here. Or at least the light may be here, but it's not revealed. Look at all these fancy words, okay? I'm reading it again. The light is hidden from the creation. It doesn't mean it's not here, but it's hidden from here. And the nature of this Helam is Helam Achad Helam. It's being hidden from the creation. There's a hiddenness on top of hiddenness. And it's because of Ila Achad Ila, the light is being raised higher and even higher as it relates to what the world is. And there's two more aspects. So that the light shouldn't be here. Or V'heder Agil, the light should be here and it's not revealed. Now each one of these words has a meaning. And some of the words that Rebbe is going to explain explicitly, and some of the words that Rebbe is going to explain implicitly. But all of them have to do with what we call, in one way or another, the removal of light, Tzimtzum. Or B'klavos when you're not Tzimtzum. In general, this is the notion of Tzimtzum, which was happening in godliness, not Chas v'Shalom in God, but in godliness. The light becomes hidden in relationship to the space where the creation is, and relationship with the creation itself. And that's Ein Seif L'mayla Den Kates. In other words, Ein Seif L'mayla Den Kates in this Perek means that in order for Hashem to make a world, He took the Ein Seif away. Where did He take it? To a place called L'mayla Den Kates. And he finishes with the word V'skalalos batzmusa yizbarach. The removal of Eir from the Makam HaCholol, from the creation, is because it becomes included in Atzmos, and this is the Eir going to a higher level. It's going to a higher level, maybe to the Eir in Aliyah, but it is to the Eilam Helam Achar Helam. As it says in Chasidus, that the Eir is Begili in Makam HaCholol. And then when the Eibishtek Vayachal wants to remove the Eir, the way he removes the Eir is not by taking it away, but by giving it more bittul. Because Gilia is a shtickle mitzias, and a shtickle mitzias means a shtickle chesaron in the bittul. And when the Eibishtek gives the Eir more bittul, the bittul goes back into the state as it was before it was Gilui, Helem, or Etzem, or even Yechelis. So the Eir is going away from the Makam HaCholol is actually the Eir going to a higher level, to a level where it doesn't even shine. As it relates to us, it's removed. And Eitzeif Lamaila Maila Adein Kate in this Perek means the removal of Eir to a place which is Lamaila Maila, so that there should be space for the creation. But then the Rebbe explains why the Previous Rebbe has to explain it. The idea that the Tikkun is tells a chiddush, that godliness is found in the lowest places. We understand why that's novel, why it's a big deal. Because since godliness as it is by itself is kemei shulafnei tzimtzum, and its condition is pre-tzimtzum. And pre-tzimtzum, everything is kol batzmusi etzel kuspe pshitas. In some of them it says the kol lifnei tzimtzum as madrega v'cheles. And therefore our move on Goyd ala Inyan, we understand how big a deal it is. Shab shab chos elamata mato, that it can actually be drawn into the Makam HaCholol on the level of the Makam HaCholol, lower and lower, shein lamata men, to a point that there's nothing lower than it. Godliness goes so low to a place which has no tachlis. And this, of course, is legabek meishulaf ne'atzimtzum. So the Tikkun is that's a very big chiddush, that godliness, no matter how lofty it is by itself, comes into the world against what it is by itself to the lowest of places. Avaleni move, and the question would become, Ma'u ha'inyan that it's safe l'mayla den kates. What does the Tikkun Azeh means when it's hey? That it ain't safe goes high. That's a natural truth. Hare balav hachi. The natural condition of godliness is that it nimtza edin seif lifnei atzimtzum. Godliness is found by nature, by itself. Lifnei atzimtzum kol ba'atzmus elakus bepshitus and a madreg of yecheles. Ma'uin ayesei ilamayla adin kates. What does it mean, and how is it novel that godliness is very high? So the Previous Rebbe explains. You're right. It doesn't make sense to say edin seif ilamayla adin kates because that's natural condition of edin seif. Until there's a world. And once there's a world, it becomes very important to say Edin Seif L'Mayla Adin Kates. Shula Mayla Mayla Adin Kates, that the notion of identifying a property of godliness in a direction of higher and higher beyond an end, the hiddenness of the light, which is Hela Machat Hela, you should know there would be no inherent reason to say Ein Seif L'Mayla Adin Kates if it weren't for the fact that there is a ratzon, and there is a makam HaCholol, and there has to be an olam, and you have to have a siluk of ein seif from that cholol in order for the olam to be. Therefore, ein seif l'mayla adin kates becomes an issue. And I want to be very clear. In the next Perek, we're not going to have to say that. In the next Perek, we're not going to have to say that ein seif l'mayla adin kates because of elamis. We're going to say l'mayla adin kates because of ein seif itself. In this Perek, we have to say it. In this Perek, we have to say that the reason it's a big deal, Ein Seif Ma'ala Ma'adin Kates, because there's going to be Elamis. And if there's going to be Elamis, Ein Seif has to be removed. That's why it's a chiddush that Ein Seif goes higher and higher to make space for Elamis. And the pshat is, Kimavua B'Teres Ba'al Shem Tov Shenitfasa B'Keser Shem Tov. He brings the Torah from the Ba'al Shem Tov. B'Pirush HaKosov B'Reishis Bar Es. Doesn't bring the whole Possuk. The Ba'al Shem Tov brings the Possuk in his Sefer Keser Shem Tov, which, as the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya's Likuti Basi Likuti Amreisav HaTahirim, which is written down by his Talmidim. And in that Sefer, you have this Torah, that what is the meaning of Bereishis Bokim Es? Bereishis. That the meaning of Bereishis Hagim Yenesin B'Chochma. The first creation is Chochma. And Chochma is Eis Aleph. The first letter of the Aleph base is Chochma. The Chochma is Aleph. Now in a different Mamer you'll learn that Aleph is Keser and Chochma is Beis. But in this Mamer, in this Ba'al Shem Tov, Aleph is Chochma. So the Ba'al Shem Tov translates, V'nis Atev Bei, B'teich Eis Aleph, Chayachal the Eibishter, wraps himself in an Aleph, which is Chochmah of Atzilus, and that becomes the Levush through which the Eibishter creates the first world, Ubara Be'er, Min Eis Aleph. The Eibishter creates from what he's going to call in a few lines, Shamayim, himself, as he's wrapped in the Levush of Aleph, Eiro Atzilus. So even Eiro Atzilus is considered a being which has to do with a Levush, one Levush, a Levush of Eis Aleph. He puts on a different levush. He puts on a second levush on top of the levush of Aleph, levush beis. So there's two levushim that separate between Shamayim, which is the Yoyin Seif, and the creation of Elam Abriya. The third us, which is a levush on top of a levush on top of a levush, creates the next world. And the implication is that there's 400 worlds. Base Tov, to the letter Tov. Now, Tov is the 22nd letter. But he says on the next page, and he has an expression, Dalad Meis Levushim, for Dalad Meis Alma. Now, if you're going to say that Tov is 400, then Shin is 300, then Reish is 200, then Kuf is 100, which is right there you have 1,000. And then you have to add Tzaddik and Pei and Ayin and Samach, and in other words, it's a lot of Elamis. But this is how the Ba'al Shem Tov says it. The Aleph is one levush which creates Atzilus. The Beis is two levush which creates Bria. The Gimel is three levush which creates the Elamith which are Lamata Elam Bria. And somehow you have 400. And how the math would work, I have no idea. But trust me, the Ba'al Shem Tov knew what he was talking about. And the Rebbe knew what the Ba'al Shem Tov knew. So the Rebbe says, Achin Sata is Tov. The last letter he wraps is a Tov, and it's a garment on top of a garment on top of a garment. And we turn to page Kuf Lamet Ches. The Ba'al Elam Astachten creates the very lowest worlds. And the Ba'al Shem Tov says, V'zeh B'reishis Ba'al Elokim Es. This is the pshat in the Possuk. That when the Eibishter created the world, he used the aces of Aleph Beis as Levushim, which is Chav Beis aces ben Aleph Tov. He used the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet from the Aleph till the Tov, one not after the other, but on top of the other. And inside all of these Chav Beis aces, which you'll see in a minute, is actually Tov 400 aces, 400 Levushim. You have Ruch Yossi Yizbarach, the Ruch of Hashem, which I guess we would call the Kolos Elokus, which is called Shamayim. That Shamayim, B'reishit Barakim Es HaShamayim. The Eibishter puts on garments to wrap around Shamayim, which is called Ruchni Yossi. And it's Atev and it's Labash HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'tei Chov Beis Eis Yisrael. He wraps the Shamayim with the 22 letters, which is, you'll see in a moment, is actually 400. Exactly how that works, I don't know. So B'reishit Barakim Es. The Eibishter creates the world using Eis of Alabes, which are levushim for Hashamayim. And then it says Ve'es Ha'aretz. And Es Ha'aretz means Kol Inyoni Chemer Ha'aretz, all ideas of the Chemer, of the crudeness of the material of Ha'aretz. Now, if I understand it correctly, what the Rebbe is saying is that Es Ha'aretz means all creations. And the letter S, the first S, means all the levushim. And Hashamayim means the Elokus. B'reishis Bar Elokim Es. The Eibush uses the levushim of Aleph till Tov, which he puts around Shamayim to create as Ha'aretz the reality of all the Elamis. Now, maybe I misunderstand. Maybe B'reishis Baruchim Es HaShamayim means creating Ruchniyazdika worlds. I don't know. And Es Ha'aretz means creating Gashmiyazdika, like it says in a lot of Rishonim on the first Possuk in Chumash. But I think that B'reishis Baruchim Es HaShamayim means Shamayim is Haruchniyaz Shalai. Ruchniyaz Yizbarach. And therefore the creation is only Es Ha'aretz, which is created through all of these levushim. And creations that have fewer levushim are simply higher. Shuaydei Daled Meis levushim. You see, here you see the words. It's 400 garments min Aleph Tov, and I don't know how from one Aleph to Tov you have 400. Either you have 22, or you have far more than 400. If you do the numerical equivalent of all the 22 aces of the Aleph base, what number do you get? From Aleph till Yud is 55. From Chof till Tzaddik is 440, and from Kuf till Tov is 1,000. If you do all the Gematias of all the aces together, it's 1,495. So I don't know how the Cheshbon is going to work according to the Ba'al Shem Tov. Like I said, it's not my concern, because we're just interested in the Goy and not in the math. But I promise you the Ba'al Shem Tov knew the Cheshbon and the Rebbe knows the Cheshbon. The bottom line is he translates the Possuk B'reishis Bar Elokim Es HaShamayim Ve'es Ha'aretz that the Eibush has a ribu levushim to create Elamis. And he's not finished. After he created all the Elamis with the levushim that come from the Torah, he increased even more levushim. He covered us with more coverings and more klipin. which are not from the Torah, but they're outside of the Torah. In other words, outside of Elokus, which is Teyu, V'aveyu, V'choshech, or Tehem, which is the second Possuk in the Chumash, like it says, V'ha'aretz ha'isateh v'veyu b'gema. So the Ba'al Shem Tov says there's 400 levushim in the Torah that account for creating Oretz by being malbish, the Ruchnis, which is Shamayim. And then you have more levushim which come from Klippa, which conceal it even more. And the Rebbe says, "V'kol zeh nasai de Shem Elokim." All of this, the property of Shem Elokim, Reishas Bar Elokim, side the Eisa Shmai Beisa Oretz, and side the Oretz is the Tei of Aveyu. Shuinyan Agvur Avad Tzimtzum, which means creation is a process of exactitude, of strength, and containment and contraction. So in order for the Eibishter to create a world, he has to remove himself, and that's the pshat l'mayla indicates. But I'm going to add this right now, and you'll see this more as the Mamer unfolds. If you think about the Ba'al Shem Tov's words, the Ba'al Shem Tov is not saying that the Tzimtzum is about removing the Ein Sof. The Ba'al Shem Tov is saying that the Tzimtzum is about covering the Ein Sof with Malbush. In other words, the idea of L'mayla indicates that in this Perek means that in order for there to be a world, you have to remove Elokus. The removal of Elokus, as it's described in this Torah, is actually keeping it in the space of the creation under many Malbushim. Okay, but just hold on to that. Which explains there is a concept of Ein Sof which is revealed. But the way it's revealed by itself is lifnei Tzimtzum in the pre-Tzimtzum condition. As the Previous Rebbe explains in this Perek itself, that before the Tzimtzum godliness filled all of the Metzias, all of the space of what the creation would be, and all of the reality of what the creation is going to be. But in order for the creation to happen, the light has to be contracted and removed, or enclosed in garments covered over but present in the creation. As the Mamer describes it, one hiddenness after another, one height after another. The light shouldn't be here. The light should be here, and it shouldn't be begila. So there's two ideas about this tzimtzum. One idea about this tzimtzum is that in order for it to be worlds, you have to take the light away. And the other idea about this tzimtzum, in order for the worlds to be there, you have to cover over the light. And that's called l'mayla indicates. There is no l'mayla indicates in Ein Sof as it is by itself, at least not in Perek Tetzvav. There will be in Perek Tezayin, and I know I sound like a broken record, and this record needs to stay broken for purposes of clarity. In the next Perek, we're going to speak about the Elokus of Helam. In this Perek, we're going to speak about Tzimtzum, and in order for it to be Elamis, Elokus has to be removed. But the removal of Elokus to create Elamis is by the Ein Sof going not in the Makam HaCholol or being covered over within the Makam HaCholol. V'hainu, Shahahelim, V'ha'ilei, Mishnei Yefanim, the hiddenness of Elokus, and the raising Elokus up to create space for Elamis has two possibilities. Heder ha'or, that the Eid is removed, and Heder Agil, that the Eid is here and we don't see it. Now Heder ha'or is in Mamalik Alamin. Mamalik Alamin has to be taken away, made less for it to be in the Makam HaCholol. Heder Agil is Sevav Kalamin, which is unchanged. It's only Noga Bayat Tzimtzum. That's what the two expressions are. Heder ha'or hainu shesilik eri alatzad. Removal of the light means moving the light to the side, and to my opinion that means Mamalik Alamin, that is taken away, the Makar Mamalik is taken away by the Tzimtzum and it comes back B'Shinei HaMoz. Heder Agilui is on the Makar of Sevav Kalamin. The Eid was here before the Tzimtzum, and it's here after the Tzimtzum. But it's Ba'efen Sha'eid Ein Begili, it's here in the kind of way that the light is not revealed. So that's the Pshat, Ein Sof L'mayla Adein Kates, Tzimtzum for the sake of Elamis. That's this Perek. Ein Sof L'mayla Adein Kates is, you cannot say Ein Sof L'mayla Adein Kates as Ein Sof is by itself. That's what the Rebbe is explaining in the first paragraph of this Perek. You can only say Ein Sof L'mayla Adein Kates in relationship with the world. And the same is true, Ein Sof L'mayla Adein Tachlis also is only a chiddush when it comes to Elamis. That because there's Elamis, there's an idea of Elokus coming to the lowest levels. And in this Perek, because there's Elamis, Elokus has to go to the highest levels in relationship with Elamis to leave space for the creation. And one aspect of it is that it's removed, and another aspect of it is that it's hidden within the Elamis. Because it's two madregas in Eid, and Bepratias in each madrega in there, you have both in Yonim. And on this basis, that when you talk about Ein Sof in relationship with worlds, not by itself, the Mamer is able to explain ha'inyan de l'mayla adein kates. What is the inyan of Ein Sof l'mayla adein kates? If there's going to be a world, and there is going to be a world, because there is a world, then there's going to be a need for the chiddush of l'mayla adein kates. The change is by a lifnei, just like in the previous program we explained that inyan lamata adein tachlis is only true when there's elamis, and in elamis you can speak about godliness being present in the lowest elam. The same is true in lamayla adein kates. When there's elamis, there's a need for tzimtzum. Whether the tzimtzum means removing the eir or the tzimtzum means hiding the eir, it's because of elamis that there's an inyan event. It says lamayla adein kates. So the Previous Rebbe is explaining in Perek Tezvav lamayla adein kates. The wording is Ubeklalos hu inyan tzimtzum. Those three words are the key to this Perek. Beklalos hu inyan tzimtzum. In this Perek, as opposed to the next Perek, in Seif lamayla adein kates, it's beklalos hu inyan tzimtzum. So if you read the Ba'al Shem Tov's words bepashtus, as the Rebbe brings them, saying in Seif lamayla adein kates means that they take away the light for it to be elamis. But l'chayda, the oimek of the Ba'al Shem Tov's words is that when you take away the light, you didn't really take it away. You take it away in relationship with the world, but it's really still present. But let's not press that issue. Now comes the Torah of the Maggid. The Torah of the Maggid is for sure deep in Torah of the Ba'al Shem Tov. Of course, you will know that in every Basi Legani, the Rebbe mentions all the Rabbeim. So that was the Ba'al Shem Tov, and now comes the Maggid. I just want to say that in this Mamer, it looks like the Rabbeim are listed in order. The Ba'al Shem Tov, the Maggid, the Alter Rebbe is on page Kuf Lametes, the Mittel Rebbe is on page Kuf Mem, the Tzemach Tzedek is on page Kuf Mem Aleph, the Rebbe Marash is on page Kuf Mem Gimel, and the Rebbe Rashab is on page Kuf Mem Dal. I think that's how it plays out. So the Rebbe has now the Mezritcher Maggid, who explains the union of Tzimtzum in a much deeper way. Let's explain. If we translate the Kabbalistic statement Ein Seif L'mayla Adin Kates to mean Tzimtzum, for the sake of Elames, we could explain this better. Api HaMavor B'Teira said Abba Maggid. Mezritcher Maggid in his Sefer Teira, in Pachas Baleis, on the Possuk, Asele Chashtei Kasei says Ketz. It's one of the most famous Teiros of the Mezritcher Maggid. There's a lot of Maimorim that go on this Teira, including in Hemshech Tafrei Shayim Beis. There's an arichas that goes on mamish for hundreds of pages, from the beginning. I think it's Pashas Boy in Tafrei Shayim Hey until halfway into the Chelik Sheli Nema. It's just a huge arichas where the Rebbe Rashab quotes a Torah of the Maggid, and he gives it biyur. Sometimes he quotes one word and has a whole Mamer or a whole line and a whole Mamer, and finishes in the old print, if I'm not mistaken, on page Aleph. Reish Mem Zayin, something like that, or Aleph, maybe even Aleph Shin Mem Zayin. It's a huge arichas. It starts in Boy, which I think is page Tov Tzadik, but I don't have the Sefer in front of me. But 500 pages of chassidus on this Torah. And then a kud of this Torah is that the Tzimtzum of the Gilui. That's the chiddush of the Maggid or the Ba'al Shem Tov. The Ba'al Shem Tov's Torah explains that for there to be Elamis, you have to have Tzimtzum. The Mezritcher Maggid adds that the reason for Tzimtzum is b'shvil Gilui. And that's, of course, what the Rebbe Rashab is doing. In the Hemshech Chaim Beis, he's explaining the Tzimtzum b'shvil Gilui. That the Possuk says, Kesef. And then this, the Mezritcher Maggid says, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was a Kamet Tzimtzum derech Kamei Elamis. Hashem made many Tzimtzum, through many Elamis, which is the same idea that Ba'al Shem Tov just spoke about. But the reason is, and this the Ba'al Shem Tov did not speak about, that ultimately a person should become Deibish one with the person, that Shalei Yachal Lizbet as Bihirase, that the way the light of the Eibishter is before the Tzimtzum, a person cannot receive it. So the Eibishter makes reductions in the air for the person to be able to receive it. But the avoid of the person is to reverse the Tzimtzum. A person that's a separate from materialism. He has to refine himself more and more. And as he refines himself more and more, he reverses the effect of the Tzimtzum. The Tzimtzum is for the Eibishter to meet man. And the avoida is for man to meet the Eibishter as if there's no Tzimtzum, which is called in the Ayim Beis, Hafichas Cheshach Tzimtzum Legilui, in a higher Madrega Cheshach Atzmei Yoir. A person should reattain Achdus with the Eibishter without the effect of the Tzimtzum, and then he's going to call it an Adam. Because Adam is two things, Daled Mem, which is Dibur and Machshava, and the Aleph goes on the Eibishter. And the Eibishter makes the Tzimtzumim to read Adam, and the Avodah is to reverse the Tzimtzumim to meet the Aleph in its purest, in its most unadulterated and unfiltered state. When a person reverses the effect of the Tzimtzumim and becomes attached to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as he is Aluf Eshaleil, the master of the world, then you become another. And he explains Shtei Chatzeitsis Kesef. What are the Chatzeitsis? The Shtei Chatzeitzuris, as we know. Ha'adam hu Chatzitzura. The person is only half an image, which is the Asias Daled Mem, and the Aleph, which was the Eibishter Kvayachal, is also a Chatzitzur Einet Seder Shlema. And Geshias Dahabku Yachtav, when Elokus and a human being converge in a maximum way, Nasa Tzura Shleima, you become a complete form. So the Eibishter makes it Tzimtzumim so he should meet us. But he makes it Tzimtzumim to meet us only an initial meeting. The end is supposed to be that we through Avodah have to expand that meeting until we reverse the Tzimtzum. This is the end of the Previous Maggid. And now comes the Rebbe's explanation. Umizeh moving which explains. There's many tzimtzumim. Helam achar helam b'chulu, hiddenness after hiddenness, and ilui achar and ilui, heder gilui, which we explained as the idea of removing light. Whether removing light means taking it away from the cholu, or removing light means keeping it in the cholu and hiding it, but in relationship with it's hidden. That's what the Ba'al Shem Tov says. And the Ba'al Shem Tov adds that kavanah sat tzimtzum is b'shvil agilui. Ein ze be'efen. The point of this is not sha'ed eni shayech lamokum shebeim esam, that the light is not related to the space where it is hidden, or the space in which it is hidden, because its end is meant to be hiddenness. As far as the creation is concerned, the shachas tegilui. But exactly the opposite. The end purpose is that after the Eibush removes it, so he should meet man where man is, on a level of the person reverses the tzimtzumim and is magala lakus and the makam achol. That the light should through avoid be able to be brought lamata below, the place the person is found. That a person should become one with the Eibishter. A person should be affected by godliness in a way that godliness is revealed to him, and revealed to a way of pnimius, and he's able to receive it. A person who by himself is only daled mem, which is dam. Yishper durach brechenes kol agash should break his own limitations, his own physicality. Should ascend from a lower level to a higher level. Until she is which is the Aleph and then godliness is revealed. So the Ba'al Shem Tov talks about Tzimtzum, and the Mezritcher Maggid talks about Tzimtzum. But the Ba'al Shem Tov talks about Tzimtzum in the way that the Tzimtzum is necessary for there to be a world. The Mezritcher Maggid talks in such a way that the Tzimtzum is necessary for a person to reverse it and reveal godliness in the world. And that's the second step of understanding Tzimtzum. Of course, the Mezritcher Maggid's Torah is much deeper than the Ba'al Shem Tov. Now comes the Alter Rebbe. Now, Alter Rebbe is going to say two things. And the first thing he's going to say, which is even deeper than the Mezritcher Maggid, is the idea that Tzimtzum is only an eid and not a moed. In other words, that the Ba'al Shem Tov is describing the need for Tzimtzum for creation. And the Mezritcher Maggid is describing the need for Tzimtzum to reverse the Tzimtzum to Megala Lakus. The Alter Rebbe says that the whole question of Tzimtzum, and the whole question of Tzimtzum B'shvil Agilui is only when it comes to Ein Seif. When it comes to Atzmos or Moed, Tzimtzum B'shlei Kipshutei HaMoed Hu Be'ezgala. The pshitas of the Eibishter, not Eibishter Linus, was never removed. So the Lamaila Maila Adein Kates is even more profound. First of all, it's for the sake of creation. Second of all, it's for the sake of Gilui. And third of all, it's only in Oy that you have Lamaila Maila Adein Kates, and in Atzmos there's no Lamaila Adein Kates. But that idea is revealed when the Tzimtzum takes place. When the Tzimtzum happens, the Moed is Behizgalos. Omam Shech Mamer, and the Mamer explains, I'm doing Perek Gimel now. They live, they had Tzimtzum, pre-Tzimtzum. Ho Ya'edin Seif, but Gilui, godliness was revealed. Like it says in Eitz Chayim Terem Shenetzel and Netzolim, before the worlds were created, beginning with the world called Netzel, which is Atzilus. Ho Ya'ed Elyon Poshet, a light which is supernal, high and simple, which is basically the Mokar of Seva Kalaman. Mamali is called Metzias, filling all of the space, which is called Metzias. The Tzimtzum, the effect of the Tzimtzum is Nesalim Ha'edin Seif, the godliness is removed. And the Ba'al Shem Tov describes the need for the removal of the godliness. And the Mezritcher Maggid describes the idea that the removal of the godliness is the ultimate rebringing back of that oil. But then comes the Alter Rebbe. Umizeh, moving from the very fact that we describe the Tzimtzum as it relates only to Eir. And of course, you know the Rebbe's famous letter about Tzimtzum, with his 4 shitas about the Tzimtzum. But our shita, the shita of the Alter Rebbe, has 2 very big chidush. The first chiddush, which a lot of shitas hold, is that the Tzimtzum is in Eir Shalei Kipshutei. And the second chiddush, and the chayra, this is the chiddush of the Alter Rebbe, does not say in Kabbalah that there's a Tzimtzum and Maor Shalei Kipshutei. When it comes to Maor, there's no Tzimtzum at all. Adarab. HaMoir is Galus. Godliness is never more revealed than at the moment of Tzimtzum Berisha. And that's the third idea. The third idea is not that you need a Tzimtzum for creation, but the Tzimtzum for the sake of Gilui is that you need Tzimtzum that Atzmos, Moed, should be shown because the Eid has been removed. Huh? Is the third idea, which is that the whole idea of removing has to do with light. In other words, one Metzias is a state to a different Metzias. So Elam is the Metzias of Helam, Oir is the Metzias of Gili, and they would clash. So if you're going to have Elam, it's Lashon Helm, you have to remove Oir. But the Eibush has built in Metzias Nimt. He doesn't bother anybody, and nothing bothers him. So the Adarabah, the Eibush is fully here in the Makam HaChalal. So the Inseif Lamaila, the Inkates, which is the removal of Eir, includes the Hamoiru Bezgalas. Shatzim to Merak B'Chinas Eir removes the Eidin Seif Shayamal Kol Makam HaChalal that filled all the Metzias. Mash'ain King Fish Eidin Seif Lamaylu B'Shash B'Chinas Atzmas, as opposed to the Madreg of Eir, which is not Begili, but it's hidden in Atzmas. Shashom Le Shayach Le Mishahoy Ha'elyon Poshat Malas Kol Metzias. The Madreg of Eir Seif is included in Atzmas. You can't speak about Gilui. You can't speak about Mili because it's Kol Batzmusei. And the Rebbe says it to the Madreg of Yecheles. There's no need for Tzimtzum in the first place. In other words, Eir, which is one with Atzmas, which is called Yecheles, has no Tzimtzum. Allah has come of a Kama Moyer itself. And you have the footnote that the Rebbe wrote to the Mamer Pasach. It doesn't take Eir. And we know that creation has Makam. And creation has the removal of Eir from that Makam. So in that makam there could be aimed elames. That whole process of tzimtzum has only been a get to Eir, urak be'Eir. And as the Rebbe just said, only Eir which is begili in the makam achal. However, more, and we're talking about the source with the capital S, and of course also a lower level, the Eir akol batzmusei lo yishayich tzimtzum chasashom. There's no need for tzimtzum. When he spells it out, the level of Eir, you can speak about filling the space and being revealed in the space. Shayach bei gam tzimtzum, you have to remove it for it to be placed for elements. But when you say shayde tzimtzum Eir, when you remove the Eir, nisher mokim poni v'cholol, the space is left vacant and empty. Harei zerak be'erach Eir. It's only in relationship to that madreg of Eir. And which madreg of Eir? Which is in a state of gilui. The light was originally revealed, but it filled the space. And the Eir and the Metzias of Elam contradict one another. If godliness is revealed, you can't have self-centricity, separateness revealed in the same space. One Metzias is a contradiction to another Metzias. It can't be worlds when because the brightness of the light, like the Mezritcher Maggid says. And therefore, the light is removed. And now you have a vacancy. And when you talk about a vacancy, you don't mean there's nothing there, you mean there's no Eir. And specifically you mean she'ein be'Eir v'izgalus, no revelation of Eir. But the Makam HaChalal is there, which is also the Eibishter. Aval HaMoir, the Eibishter himself. And if you be specific, it's both the Madreg of Moir and the Madreg of Eir HaKol Batzmusi, which he calls Yecheles, Hinigam la'acharei Tzimtzum, even at the point and place where the Tzimtzum is happening, the Moir never moves. Hashem himself is a Metzias of Helam, but he's not Helam Magabe anything else, it's Helam Be'etzim. Helam Ha'atzmi, as he's called, is revealed everywhere. It says in Chassidus that even little children, they have a sense of Hashem. And the proof is that Shem Shemai, Shagav V'kel, even children have a tendency to mention the Eibishter by name. And this fact, that even children mention the Eibishter by name, which is connected to the fact, and they don't really understand what they're saying or why they're saying it, is connected to the fact that they have a sense of Atzmos, of Hashem himself. Because Hashem is present everywhere, and Hashem is revealed everywhere. But he's not the kind of revelation that interfaces, it's the kind of revelation that is available to any sense, to any method of feeling as another. You only know it as it's you. And that's the Taich HaMoru B'Hizgalos. And this is the Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe. That Tzimtzum, first of all, in the words of the Ba'al Shem Tov, is removing it and safe to create elements. Second of all, in the world of the Mezritcher Maggid, it's removing it to bring it back into the elements. And third of all, according to the Alter Rebbe, when it comes to Moed, the Tzimtzum never happened in the first place. At all. And the Rebbe separates Oir HaKol Batzmos Yecheles and Moed. So the three ideas, all connected to defining it, it's safe, L'mayla, then Kate, by the words of the Previous Rebbe, but close when you're not Tzimtzum, which is this Perek, as opposed to the next Perek. And I think I said this already 10 times. In this Perek, Ein Sof L'Malakait means that because there is a world, there needs to be a world, he has to remove the Eir. The Ba'al Shem Tov speaks about Tzimtzum, the Maggid speaks about Kavanas Tzimtzum B'shvil Agilui, and the Alter Rebbe speaks about Tzimtzum being only an Eir and not a Moed. But Perek Gimel isn't finished. There's one more idea that's mentioned in Perek Gimel, and of course he again goes back to the Previous Rebbe's Mamer. And to be honest, this L'chayla should be a separate Perek. The paragraphs of Ba'al Shem Tov and the Maggid I could see being together, but the next part of Gimel should be a separate Perek, because he's no longer talking about the effects of Tzimtzum. He's actually talking about, for lack of words, a limitation in elokus lifnei Tzimtzum. In other words, it's not talking about the creation. That in creation you need Tzimtzum, in creation you need Tzimtzum for agilui, and in creation the moed was bezgalos, but what is doing lifnei Tzimtzum that requires there should be a Tzimtzum in the first place? Which is that the keach hagvul lifnei Tzimtzum is hidden. And this also, I guess, is a tate of the Alter Rebbe. This next paragraph of Perek Gimel is the Rebbe further studying the Previous Rebbe's Mamer, but he doesn't bring a quote from any Rebbe. It's just he's continuing to analyze the Previous Rebbe's Mamer. If you have the Previous Rebbe's Mamer, it's 8 lines from the beginning of the Perek where he says Va'inyan bazeh. Now that we explained 3 concepts in Tzimtzum, the Ba'al Shem Tov's concept, the Maggid's concept, and the Alter Rebbe's concept, I have a kasha, but a reverse kasha. Not about the Tzimtzum itself, but before the Tzimtzum I have a question. That we know that before the Tzimtzum, Tzimtzum godliness filled all of Metzias. So the question becomes as follows. Tzimtzum godliness was true, was present in a way of gilui, but it was truly infinite without any constraints. The true concept of Ein Sof is Shlilas kol chiyuv, shlilas laglos, shlilas bligol, meli yesh b'hakel. I'm not quoting the quote correctly, but this is the famous quote from Samach Vov, that Ein Sof is everything, including gvul. That means that godliness by necessity has to include shesh behein eid hagavol, has to have a light which is limited, v'hein eid hablig, one light which is unlimited. And you can say even more. Not only does it have to have a limited light, infinite light, it has to have the concept of limitation. In other words, not just a limited light, but darkness also is included in it. Both a light which gives space for Metzias, which is the Eir HaGvul, as well as light which does not give space, which is the Eir HaBeligavul. And below this is the Eir which is the Mokkah of the Kav, and the Eir which is the Mokkah of Mesev of Kalam. But the Lashon of the Eitz Chaim seems to indicate that only the Eir Ein Sof, which is it doesn't allow for worlds to be, is present lifnei Tzimtzum. And here's this question, but it's not a question about Tzimtzum and after the Tzimtzum, it's a question about before Tzimtzum. Ma'awatam, what is the reason? Turn to page Kuf Mem. Shahaya Gilui Ein Sof, that the revelation of godliness lifnei Tzimtzum is ba'ev in the kind of way. Shahaya, on the one hand, you have Eid Elyon Poshet Malas Kol Metzias. Godliness fills all of the space of the Metzias. And at the same time, it's a lateness in this Makom Metzias Elamis. There's no space in that environment. Metzias Elamis, if Ein Sof Shleimus of the Kula, the Shleimus of the Kula includes also Elamis. So why isn't it true that without a Tzimtzum, there's space for creation as well? And the Previous Rebbe explains this also. But this is not explaining Tzimtzum. It's explaining the need for Tzimtzum. You see, the Tatus of the Ba'al Shem Tov, the Maggid, and Alter Rebbe that we learned are all explaining what happens as a result of Tzimtzum. This is explaining why you have to have a Tzimtzum in the first place. The reason why you need a Tzimtzum. And it's not enough the elements where they included in Ein Sof, it says in Kabbalah from the Meir Ben Gaba, which is, of course, as you know, that the Previous Rebbe writes in his memoirs that Chassidus is built on 3 great Mekubalim, the Avedis HaKedesh and the Pardes and the Eitz Chaim. The Meir Ben Gaba, he was a Sfardi, and the Ramak, who was also a Sfardi, and the Arizal, who I don't know if it was a Sfardi or actually he's called Ashkenazi, but people told me he's a Sfardi as well. And the first of the 3 is Avedis HaKedesh, and his most famous quote, which is quoted in Chassidus a lot, is Ein Sof Baruch Hu, Kshem Shesh Lekech V'Bilti Ba'al Gvul, K'mei Kein Yesh Lekech. Well, godliness is everything, and it has the power in the realm of infinity. He also has the power in the realm of finitude. Because if you're going to describe the Eibishter having a power to function in the realms of the infinite, he is infinite. It's like finitude. You're taking away from his shleimus. And since in since in Seif is every shleimus, it means the shleimus in Seif who Kalel Beligvol includes everything. Now this is only compounding the question. If Ein Seif is including everything, why do you have to have Tzimtzum Rishon? Before the Tzimtzum, there's the Gavul there also. So the Previous Rebbe continues, and this is right there a quote from the Previous Rebbe. Umikol Mokom still, even though Ein Seif is shleimus, but lifnei Tzimtzum, the way Allah causes lifnei Tzimtzum, Hayagili, and Seif Abli Gavul, the revelation of the God was so dominant that V'keach Hagvul should be Ein Seif. And here he doesn't use the word. Here he doesn't use the word Eir Hagvul. He uses the word Koyach Hagvul, which is interesting change of form. Because Koyach Hagvul doesn't mean the Mokar HaKav, it means the Mokar HaKelim is Haya Behelim, is hidden. So the Rebbe here is explaining not what the Tzimtzum accomplishes, but why you have to have a Tzimtzum in the first place. That even though Ein Seif includes everything, but for whatever reasons, the Gilui of Ein Seif by itself is only Bli Gavul, and the Koyach Hagvul and the Eir Hagvul is Behelim. V'zehu Eimri, this is the pshat when it says in Eitz Chayim, that Eid Elyon Possuk, that the infinite light of the Eibish's Possuk, which is a Bli Gavul, is Memala Kol HaMikmokim HaMetzias. He translates, Shahoya Nirgash Rak Ein Seif Bli Gavul. There's a lot in the Ein Seif which you don't see. What you see, what was felt, is the infinity of the Ein Seif. And the Koyach Hagvul should be Ein Seif, the fact that Ein Seif also includes Eir Hagvul, and even Koyach Hagvul, which is Bechinas HaMetzias V'Hayeshes, the form and separateness that can come from the Koyach Hagvul of the Eibishter, Lo Yehoya Nirgash Klal, was not felt at all. All of these are words from the Previous Rebbe's Mamer. When the light which is called Bli Gavul is revealed, Lo Nirgash Eir Hagvul, the light which is finite is not felt. That Afshe Yeshne Eir Hagvul, of course there's Eir Hagvul. And not only there's Eir Hagvul, there's also Koyach Hagvul. Mikol Mokom Ein Nirgash, it has no mitzvah, it's not felt. What you feel to Abligvul. Can't create the word, that's what they have at Tzimtzum. So this last paragraph that we're reading should really be first. Why? Because this paragraph is explaining the need for Tzimtzum. The three paragraphs before, the Ba'al Shem Tov, the Maggid, and the Alter Rebbe, are explaining the accomplishment of Tzimtzum, the effect of Tzimtzum, in three step-by-step gradations, as I explained to you earlier. Now you can ask a kasha, why? Why is it that Ein Seif Malak Makam Achol is only the Koyach Hagvul, and the Koyach Hagvul is Behelim, and that's why you have to have Tzimtzum B'chinas Siluk? And the answer is, I don't know. I really don't know. Because but if you don't understand the why, at least you know the what. Why do you have to have Tzimtzum Rishon? Because the Koyach Hagvul and the Eir Hagvul are bottled in Ein Seif Shalfnei Tzimtzum, and the only way for them to emerge is through Tzimtzum Rishon. And that's the pshat, Ein Seif L'mayla Adin Kates. Ein Seif L'mayla Adin Kates has to do with the world. If there's no world, there's no inyan of Ein Seif L'mayla Adin Kates. And the reason to do with the world, because they're in Seif, which is Malach Makam Achol, is Begeiloy only in a Bligvul. And he finishes, V'azeh U'yin HaTzimtzum, that's why you need a Tzimtzum. Shu Ba'ef, and Tzimtzum made a Legani, you remove the Ein Seif completely. And Nasa Makam Pani V'chol, created an empty space, which is called Pani. He emptied it, V'chol, and it's naturally empty. I told you many times, my father kochzer in this word. Makam Pani means a space which somebody else emptied. Chol means a space which is inherently empty. So my father says that Chol goes on Klippe. There's nothing there. Malkampanim goes on Kedusha. The Hebrew creates, he takes himself away to create a space for us. That what's removed is Ein Seif. She'ein be'ed v'ezgal's cloud. There's no gilui v'ez canal. And in that empty space, there's a possibility for Elamis. So, Ein Seif l'mayla adein kates, as we now understand it in this shir, on Perek Tezvav of this Mamer, is that since there's going to be a world, you have to have Tzimtzum for Elamis, and that's the Taich, and Ein Seif l'mayla adein kates. And it concludes Perek Gimel with the words, V'achakachim shekav kotzer v'dak. Into this empty space comes a kav, a ruled line of godliness, which is short and thin. That using that short and thin ray of godliness, it creates B'riyas u'metzias elam, is the creation of the form of all the worlds. Now the diuk about kav we'll see later. The diuk about kav we'll see in the next Perek Dalet. Now the truth is, I should include in this share Perek Dalet also, and met the third share be Perek Vav and Zayin. But I'm being nice to myself and maybe nice to you. I'm stopping here. Perek Dalet, which is a longer Perek, is really a hemshech to Perek Beis and Gimel directly. And it's all explaining the basic pshat in this Mamer, Ein Seif L'mayla Ad Ein Eaks, which is Tzimtzum B'shvil Agilui, B'shvil Ha'elamis. A guten Shabbos, a guten Erev Shabbos, and the mitzvah after Shabbos with Hashem's help will do the third shir on this Mamer. Kol Tuv.